Hey everyone, it's Abby from the blog SewHomey, and I am so excited for today's video. I'm going to show you how to make these decorative pumpkins that are displayed beside me, so you'll definitely want to stick around. Before we get into the tutorial, I want to talk a little bit about the pumpkins themselves, but if you're more interested in the tutorial, just go ahead and skip ahead. So let me talk first about the stitch pattern because I am obsessed with it. I'm going to grab this one just so you can see it a little better. So this is what a pumpkin looks like close up, and so this is the stitch pattern, and it's called half double crochet in the third loop, or also commonly known as the camel stitch. And what it does is it creates this 2x1 knit ribbing, and of course it's actually crocheted, but it looks knit, and it's just is perfect for these pumpkins because the ribbing just gives those nice ridges like a pumpkin has. So I have been using this stitch pattern for 2 hat patterns actually. I'm still in the process of getting those proofread and everything, but that's really where my obsession with this stitch came from. There are a couple of techniques that are unique to this pattern in how this pumpkin is actually constructed. So a lot of patterns will have you crochet just a rectangle and then seam the sides together and then close the tops after you fill the pumpkin. But this one actually uses a magic circle from the very beginning. So if you don't know what that is, it is just an adjustable loop that's used for crocheting in the round, and it makes closing up the circle very easy at the end. But we're not actually crocheting in the round for this pattern, but you do use a magic circle at the beginning, and then all of your rows are crocheted into the center of that magic circle. So I'm going to grab this again. So basically this was a magic circle, which is just a loop of yarn, and then as you crochet rows down, and then you make the half double crochet, and every time you reach the top of the magic circle you're going to slip stitch into it, which I will show you again. It's going to be very easy. I hope it doesn't sound complicated. So at the end you're going to have this big rectangle, and the top stitches or the top rows are all going to be connected by a magic circle, which was at the top here. And then what you do is you're going to seam the sides together, because again you have a rectangle, so you have to close the sides together. Then you're going to seam that together, and then what you're going to have is just like this giant tube with a circle at the top and then open at the bottom. So you pull the magic circle closed, which is going to be the top of your pumpkin, and then you stuff the other end, and then you close the opposite end, and you have a pumpkin. So I hope that does not sound complicated. That probably sounded really complicated actually. I promise I walk you through everything. Also, I just want to briefly talk about the yarn. I do provide 2 different yarn weights that you can use for this pattern. So it's going to be a number 6 or super bulky weight yarn, and a number 4, which is worsted weight yarn, but you hold that double. So you get similar results whenever you use those yarns. The worsted weight yarn generally ends up a little smaller than the super bulky weight, and that's just the nature of the yarn and the stitch, but it will give you variation. And if you don't have the super bulky weight yarn in your stash, I think almost everybody has worsted weight yarn, because that is one of the most common yarn weights that you can find at the stores, at craft stores. So I think this pattern can be accessible for anyone, and anyone could really crochet these. Also, what's great about using a thick yarn or a thinner yarn held double is that this project works up very quickly. I would say that the large size probably takes around an hour maybe to crochet from start to finish. And then there's a medium and a small size, and those are going to take even less time, probably 20 to 30 minutes each. This is a very quick and easy pattern. Finally, I just want to say have fun with this. I had so much fun decorating. I've actually never decorated for the fall season, or any season for that fact, actually. Growing up, we always put a Christmas tree up, and that was pretty much the extent of our decorations for the year. So I had a lot of fun decorating. I just recently moved to a different place, and you know, it looked a little empty, but now I have pumpkins everywhere, and the space just feels so much more cozy, and the space just looks a lot better now too. So have fun with this project, and please let me know what your project ideas are. I think that's about all that I want to say about these pumpkins. So let's get into the tutorial now. There are a few materials that you will need to complete this pumpkin pattern, and let's just start with the yarn first. So you will need a super bulky or a number 6 yarn weight. I chose Lion Brand Thick and Quick for this tutorial. I'm using the colorway Butterscotch, but any number 6 weight yarn will work. The great thing about Lion Brand Thick and Quick is they do have a big color selection, so your pumpkins can be a wide range of colors. You may also substitute a number 6 weight yarn with worsted weight, which is a number 4. Most of us do have a number 4 weight yarn on hand, so this one might be a better option for you. So there are instructions for you to substitute for a number 4 weight yarn as well. Next, you will need a crochet hook, and you need one that is big enough to work with the super bulky weight yarn. So I chose a 6.5mm hook for this pattern, or a size K if you live in the US. Also, you will need a tapestry needle. This is how you will seam the sides of your pumpkin together and weave in the yarn tails at the end. And then next, a pair of scissors is necessary because you'll have to clip the excess yarn whenever you finish the pumpkins. For this pattern, you will also need polyfill, and this is just a polyester fiber filling that is used for stuffed animals or pillows, just anything like that. So this is what we will stuff the fabric with to make your pumpkins all nice and squishy. Finally, you will need something to use for the stem of your pumpkin. I chose to opt for the cheaper option. I just went to my backyard and chose a stick, and I broke it into the size that I needed it. But cinnamon sticks also work great, and they're super adorable. So just be creative with this part. Use anything that you think would be good for a stem. Now we are going to begin crocheting our pumpkins. So throw all of your materials off to the side except for yarn and your crochet hook. So we're going to begin this pumpkin by making a magic circle. And if you've never done one, I'm going to walk you through it really quickly, but I will go slow enough that you can follow along. So first you want to get a long tail of yarn. I suggest probably 15 to 18 inches because we will be using it at the end to sew up any holes and, close up the top of the pumpkin. So like I said, long tail, leave a long tail. And then the tail side, you want that going down. So we're going to pinch the yarn wherever you decide is long enough. You're going to pinch the yarn with your thumb and your index finger. So again, the yarn tail is at the end, and then this part that runs up is attached to the skein right here. So again, pinch the yarn between your thumb and your index finger. And then we are going to use the yarn that's at the top, then attached to our skein. So we're going to bring this one across our 3 fingers and then run it underneath, and then we're going to wrap it over and create an X. Now, I like to pinch the yarn between my pinky and my index finger, and this is what it should look like. You have an X. And then underneath you just kind of have the yarn right here, pinched between the pinky, and then the yarn that you began with pinched between your thumb and your index finger, and then the rest was just wrapped. So this is what it looks like. And now grab your crochet hook, and you're going to insert it under this first loop of the X, and then you are going to hook the second loop under the first loop. So you just bring it like this and then twist your crochet hook so that the hook faces you, and then bring your 3 fingers out of that and let go. So now what you have is a loop right here of yarn. You have your yarn tail off to the side, and then this long tail is the working yarn that's attached to our skein. So now we just want to make a little chain so that our magic circle will stay in place. Alright, so I'm going to keep my crochet hook attached, but I'm going to show you how the magic circle works if you've never seen one before. You pull one end, and it's pulling the yarn that you have as your tail, and it's making this loop bigger. And then you can do the same thing, but pull it on the opposite end where your yarn tail is, and it's going to close that loop. So now we're going to make a chain of however long you need it to make your pumpkin, and we're going to work in rows, and each row is going to be attached to this circle. At the end, we just pull this, and it's going to close up the top of our pumpkin very easily with no weaving involved on this side. So that's the magic circle. Okay, so we're ready to begin with our foundation row of chain stitches. I'm just going to grab my yarn and hook. Again, it's still attached to the magic circle. We're just going to make chain stitches off of this. Now technically we made 1 chain stitch here, but this one does not count. I'm making the large size, so I'm going to be chaining 20 stitches plus 2 at the end, so that we end up with a total of 20. Now, if you've never made a chain stitch before, I do have tutorials for all of the stitches that I use, including the magic circle. So if you didn't catch that, I will add links to those so that you can get a little more help. So yeah, we're just going to continue chaining until we have the number of chain stitches that we need. Now that you have the chain stitches, this is what it's going to look like. So you have your magic circle, and then you have a long chain or a short chain depending on the size pumpkin. So it's going to be the top of the pumpkin, and then this one's going to be the bottom. So this is the height of the pumpkin, which is actually going to lose a little bit whenever you cinch it all together. This is 22 chains, so now we're going to grab it again. We're going to skip the first 2 chains. Those don't count as a stitch. So we're going to skip those first 2 and make a half double crochet in the 3rd stitch. So a half double crochet. Alright, again, it's yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, and then pull through all 3 of those loops. And that is a half double crochet. So you're just going to continue a half double crochet all the way down until you reach your magic circle. So you can go ahead and pause the video right here if you need, and you can catch up with me whenever you get to the end of your row. Come to the end of the row, it looks like I have 2 chain stitches left, which technically I do, but this top one doesn't count as one. So I'm just going to make my last half double crochet in the 2nd chain from the magic circle. And now, like I said, we skip this one, and then we're going to slip stitch into the center of the magic circle, and that's going to secure this row onto the magic circle. So we're just going to yarn over and then pull that loop through as a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. We flip it over, and now we're going to make a half double crochet. We skip the chain 1 and we skip the slip stitch. These do not count as a stitch, so you're going to skip them all together. Those are just what attaches the rows to the magic circle. So we're going to do a normal half double crochet, but instead of going into the top loops like we normally would, that would be a normal half double crochet. We're going to keep our yarn over, and we're going to make a half double crochet in the 3rd loop. So the top 2 which makes that V. Those top two, it's 1, 2, and then this third loop is the loop that we will be half double crocheting into. So this one right here, we're going to make a normal half double crochet. Alright, and we're going to yarn over and make another half double crochet. Again, this was the stitch that we just half double crocheted. So we're going to go to the next one. This counts as the first 2 loops, and then this one is the third. So I'm just going to insert my hook here and make a half double crochet. And the more stitches that you do, that third loop is just going to pop up right where you need it. It's going to be much easier to get to. So we're just going to continue this all the way down. Let me show you what happens when you half double crochet into that third loop. It's pushing the top stitches, those top V's, to the very front. So it looks like a braid, depending on which way you look at it, but it just creates this braided look down the center of it, of the stitches. So I'm just going to flip this back over, and I'm going to continue half double crocheting in the third loop until I reach the end of this row. Go ahead and hit pause and meet me at the end of this row. I have 2 more, and I wanted to show you these last 2 because the very last one can be a little tricky. So don't forget this one. If you flip it over, we do have one more chain here, or one more stitch here. So those were the first 2. This one right here is the third loop. So don't forget that one. Otherwise your rows will be uneven. If you need to, go ahead and count. Keep a stitch count so that you get the correct number of stitches. Alright, so this is what your work should look like so far. We made it to the end of the hat. The magic circle is on this end, and our second row, we made it down to the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and chain 1, and then we can turn it over, and this is what your work looks like so far. You have one whole braid all the way down from the top to the bottom, and this is how your pumpkin is going to be this way. We've already chained 1, and if you're looking at the half double crochet in the third loop, this row right here, this one looks like the third loop. That was the third loop that we worked into, but on the wrong side. But every time we make half double crochet in the third loop for this pattern, we want to be working on the wrong side. So this is the right side of the fabric, and that just means that this is the front of the fabric that we want to show. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and this is the part that you want on the inside of the pumpkin. So with that said, we're on the right side, and normally you would make a half double crochet here, or as I was suggesting, or as the pattern says, the third loop, we would be working in this one. However, if we worked into this one, it would push our top stitches the opposite way that we want them. So we're going to flip our work over, and I find it easiest if you hold it vertically now. And this is your stitch that you want to work into, or we're not working into, but this is the first stitch. So this counts as the first loop, this is the second loop. And then whenever you turn it over, we're going to go into the third loop closest to that. So it's this slanted one right here. And this is the loop that we're going to be half double crocheting into. Alright, let me do that again and a little slower maybe. So we're going to go to the next one, which would be this one. So this counts as 1 loop, 2 loops. Then we're just going to go into that third loop closest to the top of the stitch. So this right here is the third loop. So we're going to insert our hook right here, and then make a half double crochet. Yarn over, and again, this one right here is the third loop. we're just gonna put our hook right here and make a half double crochet. Again, this one right here is the third loop, so we're just going to make that half double crochet. And one more time, right here is our third loop. That's where we're gonna half double crochet. All right, so I made a few stitches, and you can see that the same thing is happening here as what happened on that second row, or the previous row that we just made. So you'll begin to see the braid, and you're just going to continue working in this third loop all the way down to the end of the row. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and catch up with me at the end of the row, I'll show you what to do next. So this is the top, and I have one more half double crochet in the third loop to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and make my last stitch here. And then when you're looking at it, it looks like you have another stitch right here. But you don't have anywhere to put another half double crochet, because this is actually the slip stitch and that chain one that was at the end of the other row. So what we're going to do is go ahead and flip it back to the right side. And now we're going to slip stitch into the center of the circle again. And then we chain one. And then we turn it over. And our row, that row is now tied to this circle. So now you're just going to continue row 2, working half double crochets in the third loop all the way to the end of this row. And then whenever you reach the end, you're going to remember to work on the wrong side. Even though you are on the right side row, you want to flip it over to the wrong side and work your half double crochets from the back so that you push those top chains to the front. All right, so this is what we should have for our pumpkin at the moment after you finish crocheting all of your rows. Now, as I mentioned before, I am making the large size pumpkin using the number 6 weight yarn. So mine might be bigger than what yours is, and that's totally fine. Just follow the sizing guide from the pattern. Now, with that said, my pumpkin should have 34 rows, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to count these rows because I didn't before, but it's super simple. So right here I have one row right here, so I don't want to forget this row, but every ridge that you see, that's 2 rows, so we can just count by 2s. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. This last one is 33, and then from the front is 34. So I do have the correct number of rows to complete the large size pumpkin, and then I have 20 stitches from top to bottom. All right, now we are ready to grab our tapestry needle and our scissors. First, we will need our scissors. My yarn is still attached to the skein here, so I'm just going to pull a little bit. And I want to leave myself a tail because I'm going to be seaming this side of the pumpkin to this side. So, just leave, 15, 18 inches, something like that. Just a long enough tail to give you some yarn to sew with. So my loop is still at the end, so this was the end of my stitch, and I'm just going to pull this yarn through that so I can close it so my fabric does not unravel. Okay, now our magic circle, we will do something with that in just a minute, but for now just leave it there. Don't do anything with that yarn tail just yet. Now we want to fold our pumpkin sides together, and it's going to be wrong sides together. So it should look like this, and you can kind of see how your pumpkin's going to look. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle. So we're going to use what's called the mattress stitch. The mattress stitch is pretty much an invisible stitch that will seam the sides together, but you won't be able to see the seam at all. So what we want to do is, before we get started, let me show you what we want to do. So this edge right here, it's kind of folding inside of the fabric, and the V stitches are what the top of the half double crochets look like, and that's what is on the outside of our pumpkin. So we want to do this one last time. We want to push these to the front one last time for that row. So how we do that is sticking our the tapestry needle and sewing through the inside stitches. So you're going to see these kind of like a V, not really, but I mean, it's kind of like a V right here. This is what we want to sew on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my tapestry needle through this one, just so that yarn is on the inside. And we're working on the insides with the wrong sides facing together. So now this row on the opposite side is where we started. So this is our chain stitches. This right here is our row of chain stitches, and it kind of just looks like a twist rather than a braid. So we're just going to go into the first loop. Like you can see how it kind of twists. We're just going to go into that first one, and we're going from the inside out. So pull this together, and then we're going to go back to our last row side, and again we're working on the inside so that we can force these stitches to the front. So I'm going to go from back or left to right, pulling this yarn, and then we're going to find that next one, which is this braid right here. We're just going to, again, from top to bottom, the way that you see it, then we just pull it through. We're going to continue this all the way along to the top. So again, we're going on the inside of the fabric. We're putting our needle in from left to right and then pulling it. And then we're going to find that next slip stitch and go through here. Okay, again, on the inside from left to right. Pull. Then we're just going to find that next one, which I skipped one. Whoops. Yeah, pay attention to what you do. Sorry, I skipped one. This one right here is what I needed. Okay, and keep going. The inside, and then find that next one. And as long as you follow each stitch, you're going to keep it all together, and you don't have to use a stitch marker or anything to keep them together. As long as you go one by one, you're going to end up with the same exact number of stitches at the top. All right. Okay. And you don't have to pull this super tight just yet, because you can do that at the end, and it's just going to pull it together, and it'll seam it together really, or it'll pull the fabric together really well. So let's do a few more, and then I'll show you what it looks like to pull that yarn tail. and go through this one. Okay. So now if you can see the stitches right here, it kind of blends in, but whenever you pull it, like you can't tell anywhere on there that you made a stitch. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to continue this all the way up to the top. Feel free to pause the video right here so that you can catch up to me when we get to the top, and then I will show you what to do. You can see our pumpkin is coming together now. We have the side seamed, so now we have this tube shaped. Now what I like to work with the magic circle side first, because we can close up one side and then we can stuff it and then seam up the bottom side. So what I'm going to do is find the yarn tail that correlates with your magic circle. Now I have this tangled up a little. Okay, so that was tangled. All right, now I have the magic circle end of the tail, so you're just gonna grab it, you can pull, and you'll see that this was like the extra yarn, and it's gonna start pulling that all together. So again, just keep tugging on it, tug, 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 till it's really nice and closed. Now you're gonna see that there's a little bit of a hole here at the top. Now that's okay, because we wanna use this as the top of our pumpkin. So this is actually where the stem, like whether you choose to use a stick from outside or a cinnamon stick, whatever you use to go there, it'll fit right inside that hole, so it'll be hidden. So this is fine if you still have a small hole. Don't worry about it, we'll come back to it in a little bit. What I like about having the seam side at the top, you can just tie this together. And just tie it together, and that'll keep it in place. Now you have the top of your pumpkin. Like I said, a little bit of a hole. We're just going to poke a stick right in there. Now we just worry about the bottom side. Okay, so now that we have the top of our pumpkin all tied together, what I like to do is just use the seam side, because I still have the tapestry needle attached to the end. I'm just going to stick it through the center of the pumpkin and then pull it down to the bottom. So I'm just hiding the yarn tail on the inside of the pumpkin, and then I'm just going to use this to weave the ends through the bottom side. So you can start wherever. You're just going to go weaving in and out. So I came this way. Now I'm going to skip a few stitches and go back this way. Alright, and then skip a couple stitches and come back this way. Again. Skip a couple stitches, go inside. Okay, so I've just finished weaving the yarn through the bottom. So I had to pull it a little bit more so that I could get, so that the yarn was long enough, and that's totally fine because we're going to cinch this up anyway. So I have the polyfill, and we're going to stuff our pumpkin now. So just grab a big blob of it, or a small blob depending on which one you're making, and you just want to stuff it nice and full. some more. Now you can stuff it too full. I wouldn't worry too much about that. You'll be able to see and you can take it out, but this one is quite large and it can stretch a lot. But what you don't want is it stretched so much that all you see is the polyfill through there. But you do want it stuffed pretty well so that you have a good-sized pumpkin. And as you go and stuff, you can kind of cinch it up to see if you need more. So I think mine needs a little bit more, just for the top. Yeah, I think it needs a little more. Just it's looking a little flat to me, so I'm going to add a little bit more here. And I can cinch. So this one looks pretty good, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that all the way. And this is about the size pumpkin whenever you do this. Okay, so this is what the pumpkin looks like so far. This is the top part that the magic circle, and then this is going to be our bottom part. So this is what our pumpkin looks like so far. And there is a hole on this side, and it's okay if you want to leave it because it will be on the bottom. However, I don't like to leave a hole just because the stuffing can come out. If you have kids, you know, they'll play with them. If you have animals, you know, you just never know what's going to happen with them. So what I like to do is just close up this tiny circle right here, which actually looks kind of big. So I'm just going to pull it as tight as I can, and then I'm going to weave it through some of these stitches that we had. So I'm just going to weave it through a couple of the stitches to the side of it. I'm going to pull this through and pull snug, and then I'm going to go diagonally across through a few of these stitches. You can see. I'm just going to pull it, and I'm going to just pull it tight. So it's going to start to close it. And then I'll go to the other side diagonally, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put the tapestry needle through some of those stitches in the circle, do this, and then I'm just going to pull it snug, and then again just keep working your way until nearly all of the stitches that were pulled into that circle have been woven through. Okay. And just pull each time, and you'll see that the hole starts to close. Okay, I think I need to do it just a couple more times. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Alright, I'm going to do this my last time. It looks pretty good here. You can see the stitches are coming together. Alright. And then just pull. And then what I like to do is to secure it, I am going to just slip this through a couple of the stitches that are next to it. Rather than pulling all the way through, I'm going to slide the needle back through this loop so that there is a knot. And that's going to keep it nice and secure. And then all you have to do is... So next, now that you have your knot, you can actually hide that inside of the pumpkin. And then you want to hide this tail rather than clipping it right here, just in case something happens to it and it starts to unravel. I'm just going to stick the needle through the center again, and then I'm going to come out through one of the sides. Okay, you kind of have to push it down so you can get to it, then just pull that, and then if you want, you can go ahead and do that again, just weaving it through until you have until you don't have any more of the yarn tail left. I think just a couple of times will leave enough yarn. So next, I just pull it tight, and then I'm going to snip the yarn with my scissors right here. And then by pulling it, that yarn tail just snaps back inside and you can't tell where it was. Okay. So now all that we're left with is this, is the magic circle yarn tail. So if you want to close up the top, you can, just like you did the bottom side, but I don't think it's necessary because, like I said, we're just gonna stick, we're gonna put a stick right through the middle for the stem. So I am going to weave this end through my tapestry needle. You're just gonna take it through the center, come out through one of the sides, and just poking that through here. There we go. I just kind of want to do, want to do this a few more times. Like I said, just in case this pumpkin decides to come undone. Then I can take it apart and re-sew it together without any trouble. Okay. Alright, so I think that that is good, so I'm just going to pull this one, snip it, and it disappears. Alright, so that can be thrown off to the side. So now what you're left with is this plush pumpkin. And then we're going to grab our stick. If you went outside and grabbed one like I did, go ahead and grab that and I'll show you what to do. So I have grabbed a few sticks that I found outside, which I've already used part of these for some previous pumpkins. So they're all broken, but you just want to find one that looks like a good size that'll fit through for your pumpkin. So I want a thicker one for this pumpkin since it's big. So I will probably end up using maybe this one right here. And so you can use a knife to cut it. You can use just whatever you can. I just break it with my hands like so. I'm just gonna leave, you just want to leave enough that will stick out of the top of your pumpkin, but will also fit inside. So you want enough to show at the top and then with extra to fit inside of the pumpkin. So a few inches. I'm just going to break it where I think it looks good. So this is the stick that I'm left with. You know, if you want to trim that, whatever, it doesn't matter to me because that's going to go on the inside of the pumpkin. So then all you do is grab your stick and then find the hole at the top of your pumpkin that you left. Then you just stick it on the inside as far down as you need. Can be a little tough sometimes with that polyfill, but yeah, you just fit it down all the way until that's you're happy with the stem, and you are done with your pumpkin. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you enjoyed crocheting your own pumpkins, and I hope your home is filled with them. If you did choose to make these and you followed along with me, please, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more information. And don't forget to tag me on Instagram. I want to see your finished pumpkins and how you decorated with them. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.